So our process begins with clients calling us. We don't solicit work. People hear about us and then they call us. And over the phone we get a sense of what kind of needs people are having, whether it's a problem getting into the home, safety in the bathroom kind of issues. Just make sure that this is a project that's something that we could actually help with. And we schedule a site assessment. So we go out on site, meet with the clients, and discuss their very particular needs. Sometimes it's a person in a wheelchair who is newly arriving home from a care center. Sometimes it's a person with visual impairments. Sometimes it's just aging and infirmities associated with aging. So we try to get a sense of the really specific needs of the clients so that we can provide the best modification of it possible. So generally our assessments fall into two categories. Home entry is obviously a major issue. We'll usually look at the number of steps and get the total rise. We'll go around the home and see which entries are potentially the best for some kind of entry modification. We check the site to make sure that what side the sun is facing on to get a sense of which would be best for a ramp or a stair modification. So we do a lot of home entry assessments. We also do a lot of bathroom assessments. The bathroom on the left is sort of the most standard bathroom you find in any home, a 5x8 bathroom. And the one on the right shows kind of a standard modification, somebody with a shower, bench or chair that a person then transfers into. So based on our assessments at the site, we'll provide to the families either a work write-up of just some sort of recommendations. It's often grab bars or some kind of transfer bench. Or we'll actually produce written drawings, architectural plans. And so we'll do bathroom modifications, ramps, and we even do construction drawings, full construction drawings for when we do if we're going to actually have the work built, or if someone's going to have a ramp or a bathroom modification done, we can supply full architectural plans. We'll also provide elevations to give people a better sense of exactly what this project is going to look like, because plans can be difficult to read. So we would do an extensive plan review. That's Roger, our director. Make sure that we're sending out solid plans. We also do a lot of outreach and advocacy. We present at conferences like this. We go to info fairs, poster sessions. In 2005, we were the International Code Council's sort of like charity organization, and we were there at the Salt Palace. So we're in the community in a big way, and we really try to make ourselves known so people can come and find us if they need us. So I'm going to talk a little bit now about standard dimensions. A lot of folks who call us and say, well, I just don't know how big I need the bathroom to be, or I don't know how long the ramp needs to be. And those are very, very important questions. So I'm just going to run through some of the key dimensional standards you would need to remember. So when it comes to ramp building, one of the things we often see is that people just want to build a ramp from the porch to the driveway. And in almost no situation is this adequate. So we try to really remind people when they talk to us on the phone, say they need a ramp, it's a foot of ramp for every inch of rise. So if you have a 15-foot, 2 steps, 15 inches up into your home, you need a 15-foot ramp. And that's just the ramp. You're going to need a landing at the top also. So the whole project is going to end up being about 20 feet long. So it's important to remember this. If the slope is too steep, it's going to be dangerous for people in wheelchairs. It's going to be dangerous for people walking. A lot of, no good can come from it. So we really try to remind people that it's a foot of ramp for every inch of rise, or a 1 in 12 slope. And that ramp, if it's 1 in 12 slope, can run for up to 30 feet, 30 inches of rise, and then you need a landing, like a rest place in the middle of the ramp. So if it needs to be a 45-foot ramp, you're going to need to have 2 sections of the ramp as a switchback or something like that. You can definitely do less steep than 1 in 12, but if you're going up to if you're at least 1 in 12, you need to have a landing in the middle. There are some cases in which you can do steeper than 1 in 12, but it's completely dependent on how high the rise is that you're trying to overcome. So if you're doing a door sill that's only 6 inches, you can do a 1 in 10 wedge ramp, a little steeper, not as long, but only for up to 6 inches. And you can do a threshold ramp that's 1 in 8, so 1 inch of rise for 8 inches of ramp for 3-inch threshold. And then the sloped pathway, 1 in 20, less steep, sort of sloped ramp or pathway. This you can do for an unlimited distance because it's a very, very gentle slope. And this is actually what we recommend when we're planning for no-step entries in new homes, because this is really the difference visually and experientially between a ramped entry and just sort of a natural graded entry into a home. So these are, again, these sort of threshold dimensions. A person using a chair will have a really hard time getting over a vertical rise that's anything more than a 1/4 inch. So if it's going to be a straight bump, a 1/4 inch is the maximum. And if you need to overcome a 1/2 inch, you just need to bevel the rise, get over a little easier. So clear opening for the doors is a really, really important issue. If anybody in here uses a chair, they know that a too narrow door, you just can't get through it. And so the sort of code states that a 32-inch clearing is what's required, 32-inch clear opening. And this can be accomplished with either a 34 or a 36-inch door. We'll talk about this more later, but a lot of bathrooms in existing homes and frankly in homes that are being built today come with a 28-inch door, and most wheelchairs are about 27 inches wide. And then you still have knuckles and elbows. So a 28-inch door will not do if you're building a new home or you're modifying a home. You really want to try to get up to a 32-inch clear opening. And this can be also accomplished with a pocket door. So this maneuvering space at the doors, this is just reminding you that if you're in a chair and you're pulling up to a door, depending on whether you're on the push side or the pull side, you're going to need a little more room next to the door handle. So on the pull side, you need 1.5 feet to 2 feet, and on the push side of the door, you can have it actually just be flush, or up to 12 inches is what's recommended. So clear floor space, this 30-inch by 48-inch sort of clear floor rectangle space is what's recommended for wheelchairs. That's about the size that a wheelchair will take up in a bathroom or in a kitchen. So this drawing actually shows an extended bathroom, a 9'6" bathroom by 5, kind of a standard but elongated bathroom, and shows the 30 by 48-inch clear space that can be used to transfer to the toilet, transfer into the tub, get in and close the door behind you. So 30 by 48 is going to be a really critical dimension. And the slightly more, the sort of the accessible ADA standard is a 5-foot turning diameter. So instead of coming in and then pivoting, this would allow you to come into a room, a bathroom, a kitchen, and actually do a full turning in a wheelchair. So this is difficult to do, of course, in existing homes. But if you're planning new and you really want to plan for an accessible home, 5-foot turning diameter is the clear floor space you'll want to try to accomplish. So grab bar reinforcement, this doesn't apply as much to modifications as it does to new home construction, but we recommend that backing be put between the wall studs, either plywood on top of the studs, behind the tile in a shower, or between the studs behind a toilet or a tub. And this provides sturdy space to attach the grab bars. Grab bars are only effective if they're securely installed. So sinks and counters, this again is specifically for rolling or sitting under 34-inch maximum on the counter. That's even a little high. Some people prefer 32 to 33. And then a 27-inch minimum is the bottom where the knee space. So 34 and 27 are kind of standard dimensions for roll under counters in bathrooms or kitchens. And then this is a framing detail that we like to share as much as possible. A lot of contractors think no-step entries are impossible because they've never done them before. It's actually very possible to do. What this detail shows is that the floor joist, so if this is the door into the home, this is the path coming up from the sidewalk. This shows that the floor joist is being hung flush with the top of the foundation. Often the floor joists are actually set on top of the foundation, but then you of course have to include steps. So this is just showing that key detail that a lot of contractors and architects aren't aware of, and we just like to share this as much as possible and let them know that this is really possible, and we're really trying to push for no-step entries in our new homes, so try to show people this detail.
Home entry, there's 3 main solutions to getting a person with a disability into the home: ramps, porch lifts, lift systems, and low-rise steps. When we're planning a ramp, we like to think of it as just another way in. We don't want to make people feel like it's necessarily a special case, but we try and provide pedestrian access and provide a solution that looks like it's it's more than just a ramp attached to a house. And we often do custom situations. On this ramp here, you can see there's only one railing, and that is because the person needs to drive under the carport with their van and open the door. And so when designing ramps, there's a lot of custom things that need to be done. There's no one solution for all ramps. The image on the left here, you can see this is a narrow landing, and that's because the driveway was here, and we had to do a switchback, come down and do a landing, and then come back. And you can see the issues in the site restraints are very important to deal with. And that's probably only about a 24 or 30-inch rise. So you can imagine if somebody has a split level, the type of ramp that you're dealing with becomes extremely difficult to manage. This was a fairly small lot, and there wasn't a ton of space. So if it was much longer than that, we would have had to do another switchback, and then it takes up the entire yard. So there's a lot of factors that go into that. By the UP depot, we were out there measuring slope, and we had a couple of people trying to do the different slopes. This is a 1 in 12, and it's about the most that most people can handle. Some people can do 1 in 8, but that's really difficult, and we would never recommend that. And a lot of times we get called out because there was an unsafe ramp to start with. Like Renae said, a lot of people think I'll just do a ramp from the porch to the driveway. In this situation, the lady was in a wheelchair and she fell and broke her hip because this ramp was unsafe. And so we were called out, and what we ended up with was another switchback with better railings and a better transition. And you can see here the curb was minimal. We like to design a little bit higher of a curb, and then there's also a mid-rail right here that protects people and gives them a little bit more stability. The railings on this are way too high. It's way too steep, and so we came out to design a feasible ramp that would be safe for her. And this is going to get into a little bit of the site considerations when designing a ramp. Renae talked a little bit about the landing. The landing is extremely important because you need 18 to 24 inches here if the door is swinging out, so you can get on the landing and open the door and get into the home. That's not something a lot of people think about, but it makes a ramp almost impossible to use if you're using a wheelchair. So you need to have a good sized landing, usually about 5 foot by 5 foot is preferred. And then you can see the stairs are set back a foot from the line of the ramp. And that is so you don't have to have a gate above the stairs, so someone using a wheelchair or walker doesn't have that chance to fall down the stairs. So when we go out to a home, we look at what door is lowest to the ground, and what door has a wide enough clear opening that we can get in and out. And then we'll consider weather patterns like exposure to the sun, things like that. And then we'll look at setbacks, property lines. We'll look at foliage. A lot of times we try and protect trees and plants so it maintains the character of the home. Then we'll try and minimize the impact on the yard, like we were saying. Some of these ramps, some people, especially with split levels or on a hilly site, it'll be a 50 or 60 inch rise, and we're saying that ramp will take up your entire yard. So at that point, we need to start thinking about a lift system. And then one thing a lot of people might not consider is the roof overhang. We like to keep the ramp outside of the drip edge of the gutter, so there's no ice buildup on the ramp, and it doesn't make the ramp soggy and, collecting moisture over time. So that's an important thing to consider. And then also, how are they using a vehicle? Are they coming in a van? Do they need a ramp from the van? How much space does their vehicle take up in the driveway or the garage? Those are really important considerations. It's all about the specific abilities of the user. And then things like hose bibs, electrical boxes, those are often a a major barrier, sprinkler heads. So there's a lot of things to consider on site when you're planning for a ramp. And then pedestrian access. A lot of times it's easy to build a ramp for the user, but then what about the mailman? What about the grandkids or the people coming to visit? If possible, we like to maintain pedestrian access. Estimating the rise, this can be tricky. A lot of people, when we call them and talk to them on the phone, asking them questions before they come out, they'll say, oh, there's 3 stairs, and they neglect this stair at the sill. So a simple way to do it is look at these 3 measurements, and so you would have a total rise of 19 from the stairs, and then you consider the sill, and then you consider the slope. If the stairs are designed properly, it'll be sloped to drain. As you can see, there's a little bit of a slope here. So those are all things to consider. The trick that we use quite often is we find a mortar line in the bricks, or we find a siding line that lines up with the sill of the door, and then we figure out where the ramp is going to end, and then we can estimate the total rise by measuring along that horizontal line. So that's an important trick. Like we said, 1 in 12 is the steepest we can go. There's often a slope in the yard, and so that earlier measurement isn't going to be accurate if you're going to the sidewalk or if you're landing somewhere in the yard close to the sidewalk. So what we do is we use a transit to measure this distance, because slope is very important. And we almost never design a ramp that goes along with the slope of the yard, because then it becomes really narrow and the slopes it takes forever for them to converge. So if possible, we never design a ramp that goes along with the slope of the site. So if you can go against the slope or do a switchback that goes out and back or something like that. This is just a kind of a typical layout where we would consider all of those site conditions, and looking at the back entrance is sometimes important. It's actually interesting. We have a lot of people say, my friend has a ramp and she's been robbed 3 times because they know someone disabled lives in the home. And so people are concerned about these things. So sometimes we look at back entrances so people driving by don't see them as a target, and that's a serious concern for some people. Sometimes the porch to the driveway works. Other times we do a switchback, like we saw in some of the earlier photos. And then every once in a while we'll do a 90-degree angle. Those are just kind of some standard ramp configurations. This one we designed a ramp for them with maintaining the pedestrian entrance here. As you can see, as most houses have, there's a stair at the door. So in that situation, we build up the porch to the level of the home. And then they actually put on a temporary ramp so that when the person using the wheelchair was no longer there, it could be returned to a simple, nice-looking porch. Just a few details that are important when designing a ramp. The details are crucial to get all these right, and there's a lot that goes into this. A continuous handrail is extremely important. If somebody's using a cane or a walker, having a continuous handrail is important. Like I said earlier, having a curb is important as well, and having something in between the handrail and the curb is important so no one can fall through the middle. And a lot of what we do, we don't look at the ADA code, we look at what the client needs. The ADA code is extremely important, but it's meant to protect people in public situations. When we're looking at a site, we're looking at how can we help this client with their specific needs. So we were talking to this guy and he had a couple different concerns. This one was also about maintaining pedestrian access with the stairs here. Having a gentle slope was important for him. And then you can see one of the site considerations was a gutter here that we had to run under the ramp. And then there's also, you can't see it in the photo, but there's a access area for the sprinkler controls under the ramp. And then we had to unfortunately take out that tree. This is a situation where we had a 1 in 20 slope pathway going up to a 1 in 12 ramp where you need railings when you have a 1 in 12 slope. In this situation, the path is extremely wide, so the curbs and the railings aren't nearly as important when you have a 1 in 20 compared to a 1 in 12. Different transitions. One of the hardest parts about designing a ramp is the transition at the bottom. If you're doing it in dirt, sometimes you have to bury the joists and use pressure-treated lumber. In this situation, we did a concrete transition up to about 6 inches off the ground. If we're designing a ramp on concrete surface, we'll use metal transition. Sometimes we use rubber threshold transition to make that connection because that's one of the hardest details and one of the most important to get correct. Some people are concerned about the appearance of the ramp in the front yard. This family has a disabled daughter, and driving by, you can't really notice anything different about the house. But here you can see the ramp that goes up to the front door is concealed as part of the porch. So we thought this was a pretty nifty idea that it's just another way in. It's a part of the design of the house, and it looks fantastic. And funny story, Renae actually bikes by this house all the time, and she never realized it was there until we went to the site. And she was like, "Oh yeah, that's that house." So it's kind of nice that it doesn't have to be an eyesore. It doesn't have to be big and bulky, but you can design it as part of the home. We get a lot of calls on mobile homes, and mobile homes present a serious issue because they have small sites, and they're often raised really high off the ground because of all of the mechanical systems underneath the home. So putting ramps on mobile homes is extremely difficult. You can see in these situations it takes up a good portion of the yard, but there are situations where you can accommodate the needs in a mobile home. Here we maintain pedestrian access, and we did a switchback ramp to the back, then back around. Also considering existing traffic patterns on site. This one we just built the ramp over the existing sidewalk and painted it to match. On this one, you can see the existing sidewalk was here. We built it up, and then we built a slope pathway coming up to the ramp to meet this one, and we painted it to match the house. Just putting the top riser a foot out of the path of travel so you don't have to have a gate. You can see this woman feels comfortable coming out onto the landing, and there's not a hazard of falling because the top riser is out of the path of travel, so she's not going to catch a wheel and fall down the stairs. Porch lifts. Like I said earlier, these can be fairly expensive, but a lot of times they're a good solution. They don't take up as much space. Some things to consider are keeping them covered away from the weather, but a lot of them are weatherproof. So this situation is a split level home. There's no way we could have built a ramp up that high. It's probably 6 feet. So a lift is the only situation. Some things to consider with lifts is that you need a sturdy concrete pad underneath the lift. It can't just be thrown anywhere. You need to pour a concrete pad. And then the transition onto the lift is also important. Where are they coming from? What is the access to the lift? And then some other details that are important is the gate at the top. So when the lift is down, there's no chance that you're going to fall down there. And then also keeping this spot free and clear and smooth so you don't trap your toes or anything when the lift is going up. So that's a really important detail to have that. And like I said earlier, just having a good concrete foundation underneath the lift. Low-rise stairs. A lot of people with canes and walkers say, "I want a ramp." And a lot of times a ramp isn't necessarily the best option for someone with a walker, especially if they have wheels. It kind of cants them forward and they're going down a ramp. And if they can't operate the brakes very well, sometimes it's more dangerous. Also with a cane, if you're unstable on your feet. We find that these low-rise stairs can be helpful. You can see in this photo the original stairs here. We poured a landing on the top, so there's a smooth transition out of the house. And then we have a 4-inch rise here and about an 18-inch tread here. So it makes it a lot more manageable than a ramp for some clients. So for us, it's just about meeting the needs of the homeowner. And in this situation, they had a ramp that was extremely steep and unsafe. And here you can see the stairs were built out of bricks with carpet on top. And the ramp wasn't working for them. So we came out and we designed them a nice deck with seating area. I like how they have their chair in front of the door on this one. And so we designed them a nice deck with a seating area and low-rise stairs so they could safely get down with nice sturdy handrails. Here on the right you can see this woman with a walker. She can fit all 4 legs of the walker on the stair all at once. Here are her original stairs, and you can see how steep they are. So with the low-rise stairs, she's able to walk up and down with her walker and feel secure with handrails right there for her convenience. Interior access. Doorways are extremely important. There's a few options for that. Stair glides, platform lifts, elevators, and track systems. This is a piece we put together that we've been handing out, trying to make people realize the issues with 28-inch doors. They're just not usable for so many people, and they're really not that much cheaper to install than larger doors. But really, 34 to 36-inch doors are what's necessary. This is a swing clear hinge. We recommend these a lot for modifications, probably not for new construction, but it gets the door out of the opening, so it gives you an extra 1.5 or 2 inches. We recommend these quite often because it's just that extra space where you're not bumping your knuckles, or you can actually get into the bathroom. Stair glides. These are helpful for people who can transfer easily or who are unstable going up and down stairs. They swivel so you can get out on the flat surface here, and they fold up. But if the stair is narrow, sometimes it's really hard to fit these on. But like you can see, they can do curves and they can look fairly elegant. Inclined platform lifts. These take up a lot of space, but sometimes they're a good option so you don't have to transfer in and out of your chair. You need a wide stair, and they're fairly expensive, but it's nice because you can go up and down the stairs without having to get in and out of your chair like the stair glide. Track systems, usually we refer people to UCAT on this one, but there are a lot of modifications you need to think about, like reorganizing the headers on the door. If this is a bearing wall, this is going to be extremely difficult and expensive. So all those things are things we should be considering, modifying the header to allow the track system to go through. Otherwise, you'd have to have a transfer point, which gets pretty difficult after a while. They're user operated a lot of times, or the person who's helping can operate them with a remote. You can raise and lower them as needed and then slide them along the track. They can do corners, they can do 90-degree angles. There's a lot of different things you can do with this. Elevators are pretty expensive in homes, but you can get wall-mounted elevators, as you can see here. Interior vertical platform lifts, they are an option. Pretty expensive, probably up towards $20,000.
All right, so bathrooms are the other major issue that we see for folks who need modifications. See this 5x8 bathroom that we've talked about, and then talk about our sort of 4 levels of intervention. Talk a little bit about grab bars, which are, again, one of the most important safety details, and then some other shower and sink details. So the standard 5x8 bath, sink, toilet, tub. It's the width of the bathroom is determined by the length of the tub. You'll see these all over the place. The toilet is very close to the sink and close to the tub. Not much room to move around. Obviously really inaccessible for wheelchairs, but also we have clients who just find this to be a really tight space if they're using a walker. So this is often something that we're trying to overcome. The first sort of level of intervention is if someone's just having a hard time getting into the shower. It's going to be a person in a wheelchair again, or a person in a walker who may be having trouble getting their legs over the side of the tub, maybe feeling unstable when they're trying to step in. So a transfer bench or a tub seat, not incredibly expensive, and combined with grab bars can really be a pretty cheap modification that can be really useful for people. Again, getting in and out of the tub is one of the most dangerous fall-inducing experiences, so this is a pretty good option. One step up from this is what's called a tub cut. We started doing this kind of installation about 1.5 years ago. We found a guy out in Kearns developed this for his mother. It's just what it looks like. They just cut a step out of the side of the tub, and so what would be about a 14, 15-inch wall to get over becomes a 7-inch step. So this combined with a tub chair or even a transfer bench, and again, grab bars, is really, really useful for a lot of people. And this has really transformed the way that we look at bathroom modifications, because a curb shower, which is the other alternative, is about 5 times as expensive as this, takes about 10 times as long to do this project. This tub cut can be done in an afternoon. So if you have clients who are having a hard time getting in and out of tubs, this tub cut is incredibly important. We'd love to talk to you more about it later if you're interested. And actually, we're starting to see a lot more companies are picking up on this strategy. So it's a really great option. If the tub cut isn't going to work, often curb showers are really something we've stopped designing because the tub cut will usually suffice for people. But sometimes it's a jetted tub, and so you can't actually do a tub cut. A curb shower is the next level. Again, quite expensive, several thousands of dollars. It's really a major bath remodel, but often is what people really need if they're having a hard time getting in and out. The roll-in shower, of course, is sort of the highest level of shower intervention. It's a difficult process, it's an expensive process, and it requires a lot of really good details on the part of the plumber or the contractor. Two of the major issues when it comes to the roll-in shower is that you have to get the drain lower than the bathroom floor level. In most tubs and most showers, the drain will be installed above the floor level of the bathroom, and you can't get a roll-in if that's the case. So one thing that is required if you're going to do a roll-in, well, required in almost every case, is to go and actually lower the drain by about 2 inches, which isn't really difficult if you have a basement and you have solid joists, but there are many cases in which it's a difficult thing to do, but that's required. So this is just a kind of a fun little case study. We had this sort of standard 5x8 bathroom, and we had a gentleman who was using a chair, and there was just no way we were going to be able to get a roll-in. It was on slab, it was going to be really expensive. So we found this sort of tricky modification where we took this closet from his bedroom, and we actually cut it in half, and we put in a door, and this is a ramp, a tiled ramp, up into a shower. So it's a curb shower from the bathroom, and there's a slope marble threshold, a threshold here that he can roll over, and then there's a curtain here. So you can see this is the door, this is the new closet that's been cut in half. This is going into this sort of tiled shower chair parking garage. This is coming into the shower over the threshold, and here you see the curtain that's protecting this little parking garage, and of course grab bars have been important. So again, this is all about custom design. This is all about trying to make it work for the client and sometimes finding creative solutions in difficult situations. So these are just a couple of examples of benches. A lot of you probably are familiar. This is a sliding transfer bench that can be good. You'll need to cut the shower curtain, of course, so that it fits in between the rails and you're not getting water. This has also been combined with a tub cut. This case is just a fun photo because these folks built a shower with a fixed bench that was built in, but then of course the person sitting on the bench couldn't reach the controls. So they had to go out and get a transfer bench anyway. So that's something really important, especially in a larger shower. If you're thinking about putting in a fixed bench, you got to consider where the controls are and consider where the shower head is. So here's this tub cut. As we spoke about, pretty simple fiberglass step. And there actually is a modification called, this is sort of clamshell attachment that some of these companies will sell. So yeah, you're exactly right that when the tub has that cut in it, it basically becomes a step-in shower. But if you have grandkids or other family members who want to use the tub, you can purchase this clamshell attachment that has these two cams that fix a rubber seal around that step, and you can use it as a tub again. We did this for a family about a year ago when we went out on site to do the inspection. Roger really wanted to see if it actually would work, so we filled up the tub and it worked really well. No water on the floor, so that is a good option if you need to be able to maintain the use as a tub. So yeah, grab bars, in a lot of cases, a couple grab bars can totally transform somebody's experience in the bathroom. Particularly getting in and out of the tub or in and out of a shower, but also getting up from a toilet. Grab bars are really, really important. And often a horizontal grab bar on the long wall of a shower or tub, a vertical to help get over the threshold, we find is often very useful for people, especially when these are combined. And diagonal bars are kind of hit or miss. You really have to talk to a client about whether this is going to be useful. Some people feel that they're unsafe because they're going to slide on the bar, but some people think it's really useful, especially if they're going to be sitting and standing in the shower, that you can have those sort of dual heights. So sometimes a diagonal is really important. We also like to say, if you look at code, there's a couple different grab bar sizes that are acceptable to code, 1 1/4 inch, even up to 2 inches in some code books. We recommend an 1 1/4 inch grab bar. It's just another example of a person who needed bars all around the tub, and again, this vertical one getting into the tub. And then these fold-down bars, we don't recommend them very often just because they're quite expensive and you usually are able to attach to a wall. But if you have a situation like this where you don't have a wall next to a toilet, the fold-down bars, which are of course rated to be strong enough at the wall attachment, can be really useful if someone needs to have especially bars on both sides of the toilet. So these are just some of the details in the showers. A curb shower, this curb shower was a prefabricated unit, and you can see it comes with this kind of rubber, kind of non-skid surface. That's really important. Of course, slipping in showers is scary and is dangerous. And in this case, what we often recommend if we're not doing prefab showers, if we're doing new tile showers, is a 2x2 non-skid swimming pool tile. So these are smaller tiles, which means that there are more grout lines, which gives you some extra sort of non-skid. And then this swimming pool tile, it has a really high friction coefficient. It's rated for teenagers running around a pool. So we recommend this often, and this shows that we put it on the bottom of the shower as well as on the curb. A lot of people don't step on the curb, but just in case, you want to make sure that that top curb is also non-skid. And in this case, it's pretty cool. These grab bars also double as towel bars. So sometimes when we're designing new bathrooms, we'll actually specify that if you're going to be installing towel bars on the walls, why not make them a grab bar? So here's our slope marble threshold detail. Really critical detail. So this, you can sort of see the shower has to appropriately slope to the drain. And here you can see this 1/4 inch lip. This is the inside of the shower, this is the bathroom. There's a smooth transition from the shower floor, and then the tile in the shower has been set down 1/4 inch so that you get a good water base, so that if you get a little bit of buildup of water in the shower, you're not flooding the bathroom. And here's that detail in drawing. Again, the bathroom floor, a smooth transition into the shower, a slope down, and then a 1/4 inch. So you really have about a 1/2 inch from the bathroom floor down to the tile, and you have a vertical lip that helps keep that water in. Again, requires a lower shower drain. This is another, in some cases, if you can't get the drain down, which is often a problem, we've started to sometimes specify these flexible rubber dams. So instead of a tile solution where you're trying to create a water barrier, this is a case that we did a 1.5 or 2 years ago. It's actually a metal strip that's holding down an L-shaped rubber piece. And so this is obviously inside the shower. There's this rubber dam here, and outside the shower, and you can roll right over this rubber and it will flex back up. This is a solution where it's been attached with a metal strip. This is a sort of a prefab solution that we've seen some companies start to do. and it's actually glued or adhered to the shower base. This is adhered with like a jet, some kind of like aviation glue. So it's actually an incredibly strong glue, and this is a kind of a thicker, flexible rubber. So this has been a really good solution for us in some cases. There are only a few companies that do it, but these rubber dams can be really nice if you can't get that drain down. Often if we're designing and specifying shower heads, we'll recommend having a fixed head as well as a handheld shower. So if somebody's sitting, they can use a handheld shower. And if a person is standing, they can just use this sort of easy lever diverter to switch it back from fixed to handheld. So that's just a nice detail. And here are our roll under sinks. So in this example on the left, one really nice aspect of this is that the plumbing has been protected, or your knees have been protected, whichever way you want to look at it, with a kind of a thin wooden panel. Of course, the details are going to be important as always. How deep this is going to be important. How high this counter is going to be important. But this has been a nice solution, and just recently we were out on a visit and showed a guy this photo and said, oh yeah, that's what I'd really like to have the nice finish across the plumbing. And the photo on the right, you can see this was a large bathroom modification, but there's a lower counter for the individual in the wheelchair, and then a higher counter for a person standing. This was a modification where a woman wasn't using a wheelchair, but wasn't able to stand for a very long time, so she wanted to be able to sit down at her counter. So we took out the doors and the shelf below the sink, and she had a chair there, and when she would go to brush her teeth or do her makeup, she'd sit in that chair. And the same is shown on the right as a easy roll under modification, just taking out the doors and the cabinet below the sink. So kitchen modifications, I'll go through just kind of an example of an entire model kitchen, and then we'll talk about some of the appliances and details that can be useful. So a roll under cooktop, again, if a person's using a wheelchair, can be really useful. I'll show a couple examples of those in a minute. A roll under sink, of course, and this shows a case where you would actually maintain the doors below the sink, but have them open to an open area. So they can close and it'll look like a finished cabinet, kind of like a cabinet facade, and then opens to a roll under sink. It's important to remember, especially if you're doing modifications, that the floor won't be finished below these new roll under appliances. So, if you take out the cabinets under a sink, you're not going to have the same finished floor, so you're going to have to deal with that. That also applies to bathrooms. So this is a side hinged oven. So instead of a pull down from the top, one that opens from the side, can be really helpful. And then this actually shows also a breadboard below. I've got a couple of photos of that. So a person taking something hot out of the oven can just set it on the breadboard. It's a pretty easy and nice solution. Again, side hinged refrigerator and a bottom freezer sometimes is useful for people. Again, these appliance issues are going to be, of course, client dependent, but these are just some good ideas. And then if a person's standing but is having a hard time reaching, these can be some shelves that actually roll out in the upper cabinets. So here's an example of a shallower sink. These folks did a modification and they weren't able to roll under because the sink was so deep, so they just installed a slightly shallower sink. The one on the right shows some front controls. Of course, you're not reaching over a hot cooktop, and the floor being finished under the roll under stove. Yeah, and then this shows accessible counter space. This is a roll under cooktop. This is a sink, half of which is roll under, the other half maintains some of that storage. And this just looks like a nice spacious kitchen. Doesn't necessarily look like it's been modified for special use, and this shows one where a family wanted to have a microwave that was easy to access. They're usually at the back of the counter, which can make them hard to reach. Just stick it in an island, and it's really pretty accessible. Again, some examples. In both of these cases, you can see that this cooktop is roll under, and it's also lowered because these kitchen counters were too high, and so to have the roll under cooktop, they needed to lower the counter. In this case, this shows a cool, again, that finished cabinet look, and these are actually doors that slide back in under the counter. So this was a kind of an elegant solution. Here are just some examples. Pull-out freezer, of course, And this was a gentleman who had a hard time bending over, had some back issues, so he wanted the dishwasher to be higher off the floor. Again, importance of speaking specifically with the clients and their needs.
Okay, new home construction. Some of this is going to be encouragement, some of it's going to be disappointment, but a lot of it's about advocacy, and I think it's important for all of us in here to be advocates to design homes well that will last a long time. Aging in place is a big issue. Why are we building homes that we can't age in? I think it's an important question that we all need to ask. So, this is a lot of text here, but the International Building Code, IBC, and the Fair Housing Amendments Act, FHAA, both require that all dwelling units in new multifamily buildings with elevators be usable by people with disabilities. So if you have an elevator in a multifamily building, you have to have every unit be usable. IBC and FHAA both require that at least one story in buildings with 4 or more units have an accessible entrance, and that all units on that story be built to usable standards. So if you guys have seen kind of the 4plexes where 2 of the units on the bottom go downstairs, those are no longer allowed because the lower floor is not accessible or usable, rather. IBC requires that in a building with more than 20 dwelling units, 2% of the units be built to an accessible standard, and many affordable housing programs and special use housing require higher percentages built to an accessible standard. So 20 or more dwelling units, 2% have to be accessible. This is going to get into the difference between usable and accessible. Usable is 30 by 48. Accessible is that 5-foot turning space. Let's get that. Usable, we need a 36-inch wide hallway with 36 being that key number, and then 32 for the doors. I think 36 might be required for the entryway. And then accessible, we need that 5-foot diameter turning space. Usable entrance, like I said, 32 inches. Accessible, these are just crucial for people to be able to use doors. I would argue that you should do that all the time. And then also when designing kitchens, we should be considering the 30 by 48 centered on the appliance. So you can roll up next to the appliance with your wheelchair. So that means keeping appliances out of the corner of the kitchen and things like that. So you need that to be centered on the appliance. And then in an accessible kitchen, if it's in a U shape, you need that 5-foot turning space again. Okay, just some more details about controls and switches. All this is very important. This is a home plan that we did showcasing different accessible features. No step entryway, like Renae said, 1 in 20 slope is good. One thing to remember in a garage, you still need that 5-foot turning space in between the cars so you can get in and out easily. The 36-inch wide doors, low thresholds, switches and outlet controls no lower than 15 inches and 48-inch maximum height. So this is a piece that we put together talking about visitability. This is a term that's been coined recently, saying our home should be visitable to people with disabilities, for kids in wheelchairs, for grandparents coming over for barbecues, and it just makes it a lot easier for everybody. So these are the 3 important features in visitability: a no-step entry, adequate doorways, and a usable bathroom. If you have these 3 things, you're going to greatly improve the housing stock in our new homes, and we think every home should be built this way. This is just, it's easy for families, easy for seniors, easy for everybody. Just the idea of the visiting family members and kids coming over. There's there's a lot of different options. A lot of builders are scared about the no-step entry, but you can do it in a lot of different situations with basements, even on slab, or even from the garage. The code with the garage is that the front of the garage needs to be 4 inches lower than the door or the level of the home. Usable bathrooms, we talked about these reversing the door swing or creating that open space in the 5x8. If you stretch it out to 5x9.5 as the typical, then you can create a usable bathroom. And this is something we put together to give home buyers an option to say, this is what I want in my new home. This is the order form. We prioritized it and said, what is the most important things and what are some of the easiest things to start doing? This is visitability. We have the no-step entrance, we have adequate doorways, and we have a usable bathroom. The second tier is safety and convenience. We have reachable switches and controls, convenient hardware, grab bar backing. You never know where the grab bars are going to have to go or when they're going to have to go in. And then a cool idea is having a main floor bedroom or den. And then here's the upgrades and adaptations. This includes wider hallways, grab bars installed, step-in showers, 5-foot diameter, a lot of that kind of stuff. And we actually had one woman out in Daybreak who bought a visitable home, and she didn't even realize it was accessible. She just said, oh, I think it's spacious, and I liked it. And so it doesn't necessarily have to look accessible or anything like that. I think it can be really nicely designed. Then outdoor living. Make a patio that's easy to roll out, something to enjoy for everybody where you can just roll on out and enjoy the outdoors. And then out in Daybreak, at first, a lot of the homes were built like this. They had stairs, they had a step at the door, and they weren't accessible, they weren't visitable. And the only thing that we found that was accessible was the visitor center because it had to be according to the ADA standards. And so it became an issue for us because we thought, why is the visitor center the only thing that's accessible? Because people want to be visiting friends and family. And there's just so many stairs, and we think they missed an opportunity on this first section. And this is showing, the car can get in, but now there's a stair here. You could have easily done a pathway up to the door, but now this woman can't get up to the door because they put a stair there when they could have done a slope pathway just as easily. And then in Village 2, they started thinking about this a little bit more, and all of the model homes in Village 2 were visitable. And they had more pathways. They had, like I said, the model homes. So this is a visitable home. She can easily roll up. She's greeted by her friend, and she can come in and visit her friend. This is an alternate pathway from the driveway. You can see there's still a stair here, but she can easily roll up and come on in. And then in Garden Park Village, this is a 55 and older community. Every home they built was visitable. So we think this was a huge breakthrough that they're considering this. They're considering aging in place. They're considering allowing everybody into their homes. Okay, this is part of the ANSI code. It defines the type C, which is visitable. Just a lot of words here, but it's basically those three features: no step entry, usable bathroom, and wide enough doorways. And then sometimes we start thinking, we work a lot, we don't know what good we're doing, but there are cases that we see where we're pretty scared about the situation. And so these are just some images of common errors. We saw this one in the beginning. This woman fell and broke her hip, and we don't want that to happen. These ramps are unsafe. I can't imagine the deflection in that ramp when someone rolls over it or if it gets wet. It's just extremely unsafe. And a lot of people, these are the solutions that they're using. I need to cover the stairs. This was built with 2x4 posts, no curb here. It's extremely steep. And you can see here they actually ended up putting in a lift because the ramp wasn't usable. So what we're trying to do is just prevent some of these things from happening, save time and effort, and help people so they don't end up getting hurt. This was a situation where there's no threshold and the water was spewing out everywhere. This was in a sorority where they followed the code and said, you need to have a railing at this certain height and this next to the toilet, but now you can't get in. There's actually a side door over here, but just kind of silly that that's the kind of things that we're doing. This was an accessible apartment complex. And as you can see, this is a nice detail here. They rounded the corner so you can come around, but then they put all the support columns in the way so you can't even use it. And then in the handicap spaces, they put a column in the middle so you can't get through there. Common errors that we don't think about. Here, they're probably trying to meet some code or some form. That doesn't make sense to put that there. It's becoming a tripping hazard. And here, this is an accessible unit, and they built a ramp with a 3-foot wide sidewalk, which makes it extremely difficult to get through here. If they would have thought about it a little bit more, they could have put it right up to the door. So just the main thing is keep it easy. It doesn't have to be complicated. We can do this, and it's actually a lot easier than it seems, and keep it simple. This woman, we went out on a site visit, and she said, you know, I can't get into this other half of my house because of the stair. I have to wait for my husband to get home because I feel unstable. All we had to do was put a railing in, and now she can get into the other side of her house. All right, well, thanks for listening.